Hello and welcome to another Victoria 3 Developer Diary. Before we get into the diary though, we got a few things to go over. First of all, I'm going to go over the comments from the previous Dev Diary. I don't want to make a separate video for this because otherwise the video will be like 4 minutes long and completely useless. So we're just going to go quickly over those and then we'll go through the Twitter teasers and then on to today's Dev Diary, which is on colonization. So let's have a look at some of these journal entries responses. Activating journals sounds like there is a limit to how many can be active at the same time. Is there a such limit? No, there is no limit. You can pin or unpin the ones you want to be more or less visible. Lovely. Does the fact that the Hanoverian succession exists as a journal entry imply that we'll be able to do something about it? Is there an outcome where the UK retains the Union? Journal entries don't always have a completion condition. In this case, it serves as a reminder to the player they will eventually lose Hanover. Behind the scenes, we also use it to subtly ramp up the chances of King William dying, because it wouldn't be much of a Victoria game if Queen Victoria doesn't ascend to the throne until 50 years into the game. True, fair enough. The system seems nice. It feels weird that the Canadian Confederation will be created by Great Britain rather than United Canada, but I guess both are possible in the game. Yes, there is a version of this for overlords and a version for subjects. Lovely. Okay, so you've told me how to avoid treacle floods, but how do I invest if I want to cause them? What must I do to achieve my goal of being the stickiest nation on the planet? You'd need to use the most dangerous production method while failing to invest in workplace safety. Does the system also replace the traditional decisions system in other Paradox titles? Nope, there are still decisions, and they'll be spoken about in a future Dev Diary. Can journal entries be shared globally with multiple or all countries contributing to or working against them? Could you have a mod where different production methods have varying effects on contributing to Awakening Cthulhu, with a journal entry that allows all countries to keep a track of the progress? Yes, you can absolutely do that, and you should. This is actually something I really dig quite a lot. Modding potential of this journal entry system seems like really good. You have a new journal entry. Let's have a look at what this is. Announce the release date. What happens if it times out? We don't get the game, apparently. And then somebody complaining about, or not complaining, but commenting on the fact that the Dev Diary was released a little earlier. And yes, some content creators like myself, for example, get the Dev Diaries prior to making the videos. I would argue that all content creators, whether they get the Dev Diary early, get the Dev Diary before they make their video, because that would be quite silly if you made the video before you read the whatever. Yeah, whatever. Doesn't matter. Let's have a look at some of the Twitter teasers that we have seen in the past week as well. So first off, we have this one from Martin. In Victoria 3, characters are not necessarily limited to a single role. For example, Santa Anna in 1836 is both the political leader of the armed forces and a general in the field, and several other interest groups in Mexico are led by generals as well. I think this is dope. I love that this is a thing. I know there was a little bit of worry when characters were first introduced that they would, be, this is your job, you can do this thing and this thing only, and, that seems to not be the case, so perfect. Love it. Fantastic stuff. Next up here, in Dev Diary 18 for Victoria 3, we went over rank and prestige. Since then, some changes have happened that define a clear difference between significant unrecognized powers like China and Japan versus weaker states, all of which plays into the process of getting recognition. So we have here, Great Qing currently holds the rank of unrecognized major power with an overall score position of number 14 in the world, which is, it's pretty cool. The fact that it's no longer, putting it at rank 89 or whatever the hell it was, it doesn't really say much, right? Sure, everyone above them is recognized, even if they are like a local power or regional power or just basically no power at all. But it would be nice to have that score position be more representative, even if there are not recognition going on. So having, unrecognized major power, unrecognized local power, unrecognized regional power, all this kind of stuff would be pretty nice to have, and it seems like that is indeed what we are getting. And I know if we have a look at the quote tweets, no, it wasn't quote tweets, it was here. Liana's tweet here ended up being responded to. If you're locked to the rank, So, number of great powers in existence plus 1, that would explain it. And yeah, it's precisely that. There are 13 great powers and major powers, so that makes 14 max ranking for an unrecognized major power. Exactly. Perfect. Glad that that is changed. That seems like a really, really nice little addition or edit to the system. And then finally, we've got a teaser for today's Dev Diary. The scramble for Africa can result in new resources for the nations partaking, but as this French colony is learning, can cause quite a lot of tension with the local powers. Lovely. And with that, we'll have a look at today's Dev Diary, which is on colonization. Obviously, colonization is a touchy subject with a whole lot of weight and history, and you know, it's a heavy topic. It is a heavy topic. But just like how Vicky 3 handled the issue of slavery pops, I have faith that they're going to be able to handle this one with a similar level of tact and historical authenticity. Which is, you know, if I'm right, then that's nice. But let's scroll down and let's see. Good evening and welcome to this week's Dev Diary. Today's topic is on colonization, which in Vicky 3 terms means the process of establishing and expanding colonial states in regions owned by decentralized nations. The pith helmet became popular among British forces during the Anglo-Sikh Wars, being widely adopted in tropical regions. The helmet has become synonymous with 19th and 20th century colonial conquests and expeditions, which is a shame because it is a really cool looking helmet, and I'm just kind of ashamed that it's got all that kind of negative history attached to it, because it looks cool, but it is what it is. So colonization is a technology. When you research this technology, you get +2 max colonial affairs institution investments. Sure, whatever those are. You unlock colonial resettlement laws, colonial exploitation laws, the quinine technology. I don't know what a quinine is. I'm sure we'll find out. And it requires international relations. To establish colonies, you must have researched the colonization technology, a Tier 1 tech common to many recognized powers at the game start. This unlocks colonization laws, as well as the Colonial Affairs Institution, which affects how quickly your colonies will grow. In 1884, the Berlin Conference initiated the Scramble for Africa. Hungry for new resources and global dominance, the great powers divided the continent between themselves and began a relentless campaign of conquest and colonization, establishing colonial governments to oversee their new domains. Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more context there, but, you know, for 3 lines, that seems pretty reasonable, okay? You can establish colonies in strategic regions where you have declared an interest, and within those strategic regions you can colonize a state region which at least one state is controlled by a decentralized nation. Once you've selected a location, one of the provinces in that state region will be the starting point for your colony. Having a colony in a state region does not give you a monopoly on it. Other colonial powers can create competing colonies, resulting in a split state and messy borders that are sure to generate diplomatic tensions in the future. Okay. Colonial states are a special kind of state that is created by establishing a colony in a decentralized nation or conquering territory from an unrecognized power. A colonial state that borders non-colonial state belonging to the same country will lose its colonial status and become a regular unincorporated state. So, this is really kind of pointing to the Americas, and it is pointing to Russia mostly. You know, you've created a colonial state, but then it borders your non-colonial state. You've colonized a bit of Siberia or a bit of the western part of the Americas, and now it's bordering your non-colonial state. So it will lose its colonial status and become a regular unincorporated state. So you can colonize and grow your country. Colonial states have a bonus to migration attraction and are affected by certain modifiers from colonial laws and the Colonial Affairs Institution. Since colonial states cannot be incorporated, your institutions do not apply there, and pops living in these states cannot be taxed and will have very little political power to contribute to interest groups. Now, why would you want a colony? Primarily, you'd want colonies to gain access to more natural resources that you may be lacking at home, especially goods required for more advanced manufacturing production methods like rubber and dye. Once your colony expands enough, that it's the largest state in its state region, it will become part of your national market, giving you direct access to the goods it produces, assuming that you ensure market access. Many European powers have little opportunity for aggressive expansion in their homelands, as wars there could become very unpredictable and destructive. And of course, any territory you don't colonize yourself may fall into the hands of your rivals. So you get a handy progress bar, letting you know how soon your colony will expand, with a corresponding tooltip and nested tooltip breaking down in increasing detail exactly why it's growing or not growing at the current rate. Yeah, seems like a decent UI. I'm not sure I can see the is the progress... They've decided to show the progress bar at like 0.1 progress. No, it's 0.0 progress. Like, there's no progress. But it looks like there is a little blue line here. Maybe they could have advanced the game like 2 days so we could see that there is actually, a progress bar here rather than just a button with a pause and an X. That might have been nice. It might have been nice. But yeah, generating colonial growth from incorporated population, that's pretty cool. I like it. And then it's split between different colonies. Cool. The rate of colonial growth is determined by your incorporated population and modified by your colony growth generation speed. Sure. Primarily affected by your investment in colonial affairs, as well as local conditions in the state region. The more colonies you have growing at once, the less quickly each colony will develop, though you can selectively pause and resume colonial growth in a state. Once a colony grows, it will expand into neighboring provinces owned by a decentralized nation within its state region. Okay, so we set up this colony and now you're just mine. Fine, I guess. Early in the game, the colonization of most regions will be a very long and painful process due to the prevalence of malaria and other hostile conditions. The technology of the time did not allow the European colonial powers to penetrate far into Africa, but with the development of quinine and malaria prevention techniques, this would cease to be the obstacle it once was. In Vicky 3, you'll need to develop your medical technology and invest in your institutions to overcome harsh penalties to colonial growth in the most inhospitable regions. So I wonder, is it going to be like in Vicky 2, where I cannot even click the button to start a colony in a place where I don't have the ability to colonize because of, malaria's too much of a bitch and I don't have the protection against it kind of thing? Or is it going to be, yeah, sure, you can click this button and you can start the colony here, but the penalties to it are going to be so colossally massive that somebody waiting 20 years for the vaccine or the medicine against malaria will overtake you if they wait that 20 years. But you're just going to be spending out your ass to do it the whole time. I'm kind of fine with both ways, honestly. I kind of like the idea of that second one a bit more, though. Now, of course, you can't expect to claim and exploit vast swathes of land without some resistance from the people who live there. While a colony is growing, it has a chance to generate tension with neighboring decentralized nations. If tensions rise too high, the decentralized nation will begin a native uprising, a kind of diplomatic play, against you to retake their homeland and expel the invaders. Tension will slowly decay, but on average you can expect the factors advancing tension to eventually outweigh its decay rate. Though it's very likely that the native inhabitants will be technologically outmatched by colonial power, there are some factors that give them a fighting chance. Firstly, the colonial power needs to manage the logistics of transporting an army to the region, while the decentralized nation has the home advantage. Secondly, other nations with an interest in the region can join the diplomatic play on either side. If France, for instance, has their own designs for dominance over West Africa, they may decide to support Kabu in their struggle against British encroachment. I like that. Because, yeah, I mean, if you think of how colonization has worked in previous Paradox titles, not just Vicky 2, but also in EU4, logistics hasn't really played a huge part. Like, you get an army over to where you're making your colony, and because of the technological differences, you're always going to be coming out on top, and your army will replenish over time, maybe a little bit slower if you're just replenishing in enemy territory or occupied territory. But if you have a single province of your own, they replenish just fine, regardless of any kind of historical factors. But it seems like logistics in Vicky 3 will actually play a significant role, and I think that's really what's missing in most Paradox games. Logistics is like one of the biggest parts of what determines the victor of a war, and only really Hearts of Iron, I guess, is has any kind of importance put on that factor. But yeah, if Vicky 3 can put some importance on logistics, then absolutely perfect. Yeah, totally fine with that. Colonial laws are typically supported by the armed forces due to their jingoist ideology, which causes them to advocate for an aggressive and expansionist foreign policy. The industrialists, ever seeking new sources of profit, especially favour colonial exploitation, while the rural folk fear for their livelihoods if their agricultural jobs are replaced by cheap colonial labour. Awesome. Yeah, no, having different interest groups be more or less happy with colonization makes complete sense. One of the most important factors affecting tension decay is your colonial policy. Colonial powers can choose between colonial resettlement, which encourages migration to colonies, and colonial exploitation, which improves building throughput in colonial states at the expense of reduced tension decay and standing of living for pops in those states. So let's sum this up. Once you have the appropriate technology and laws, you can start a colony in a decentralized nation, and it will slowly expand over time. The rate of growth is determined largely by your level of investment in colonial affairs and the population of your incorporated states. As your colonies grow, they generate tension with nearby decentralized nations, which can eventually lead to a native uprising. Next week, we'll be having a look at decentralized nations of Victoria 3's world map. Good, that's perfect, because if you are not aware, I mean, you should be aware, but if you're not aware, the decentralized nations, it's not someone like China, right? It's not, this is an unrecognized nation. The decentralized nations are the ones in Africa that don't have a map color. They're just kind of blank on the map. So what we're going to be able to see is most of Africa, probably bits of South America, New Zealand, inner Australia, that kind of thing will be the ones that we'll end up seeing. And yeah, that's fine. I'm totally fine with this. This colonization system seems perfectly reasonable. Logistics being a big part of it is nice to see, for sure. And I guess we'll learn a bit more about it next week with talking about the the decentralized nations. I imagine there's some more stuff to come with regards to colonization. It feels like there's just more. Like, we want to know about the Scramble for Africa. Is that like a separate thing entirely, or is that using the same system and then just, oh, you've got a new tech, or I don't know, something like that. Maybe the Berlin conference can be something you see in the journal entries, for example. Who knows? But anyway, I'd like to see your thoughts, so please do leave them in the comment section below. I do read them, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to say. So, without further ado, I'm gonna sign off. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.